Welcome to 𝗱vie in Motion. My name is Deanne, and I am the virtual nurse who will guide you through this session. Are you experiencing challenges related to the development of Parkinson's? Today, let's take a special look at the advanced stage of the disease. Taking into account the strengths and limitations of each person, I invite you to take a moment to reflect, to name your needs, and to find tactics that work for you. Surrounding yourself with significant people to meet the unexpected and challenges becomes an essential strategy. You have probably observed some changes related to the progression of the disease. Everyone's energy is mobilized differently. Physical changes channel the efforts of the person with Parkinson's. This may include difficulty moving around, getting up from a chair, turning over in bed, or feeling muscle pain. In addition, some obstacles may have been added. For example, difficulties with speech, attention, concentration, quality of sleep, and swallowing. This may require more help from the partner. All of these changes require a lot of energy. They can lead to physical and mental fatigue. I encourage you to stay hopeful. You have been through many obstacles during your life with and without the disease. It is often possible to make adjustments to medications, to treatments, and to your environment to achieve an optimal quality of life. During this session, several couples will accompany you by sharing their life experience and some various helping strategies that may also be useful in your situation. Let's listen to the following couple as they share their thoughts on some of the changes.
I'll tell you something. Over time, I've learned to better understand what Parkinson's is and how it changes you and me. I've learned to recognize the physical changes and sometimes the behaviors associated to the disease. I know you don't do it on purpose when occasionally things are more difficult for you over the day or the night.
Ah, yes. What changes? What kind of behaviors?
Well, for example, I see that you show less initiative in daily activities. You've been falling asleep for some time, just like this. Even in broad daylight or after supper with the kids. At times it exasperated me.
If I've understood you correctly, I'm exasperating you a little less. I don't have the same energy as before. The diagnostic was a real shock to me. Afterwards, I was stressed, and as a result, I've made constant demands on you. It must have been really annoying for you.
It's true, especially since I was forgetting myself in all this. I was always thinking about your needs. Probably it was to protect you.
On the other hand, you've also been overly patient at times, and it's true that you often forget about yourself.
In the end, I really think that neither one nor the other should be forgotten. It's important to have the energy and the courage to continue.
Honestly, I find that we've learned a great deal on how to juggle with all that.
This couple is encouraged to learn on how to live with the symptoms and the challenges that come with Parkinson's disease, rather than fight them for each other's benefit. A better understanding of the disease and of its impact on the couple helps to better understand each other's behavior and thus encourages benevolence, indulgence towards oneself and towards a care partner or an immediate family member. Daily upheavals require more attention, adjustments, adaptation, and are more and more energy consuming. Hence the invitation made to the couple to prioritize daily tasks in a different way. I encourage you to take a time out, to reflect, to recognize the changes brought about by the disease to both of you. Moreover, this observation becomes an invitation to consider each person's needs and name them. Thus, it will be possible to do something to meet these needs, mobilize, and act. Here are a few questions for you to think about. Do you need any help to perform your tasks or chores as a person living with Parkinson? Do you need assistance as a care partner? Are there any tasks or duties that have become too demanding? Can you tell which tasks are pleasant from those that are unpleasant? Would it be possible to keep the tasks that give you pleasure and to delegate the less pleasant ones? What would benefit you from adapting your environment? Would it be more secure? Do you see any other benefits? If you have a driver's license, how do you foresee when it will be necessary to give it up? Do you know anyone who has gone through this transition and reorganized? Could the moral support of those around you be helpful in your daily life? Could this help you maintain some energy? To properly identify and meet your needs, I encourage you to continue your reflection by consulting the fact sheet about list of needs. To follow up on the reflections of your needs and also to help you take action, I suggest a few strategies that can be winning. For several years, your journey has been strewn with difficulties that you have had to overcome, alone, as a couple, or with the help of others. These obstacles may have been related to Parkinson's disease, other illness, or other daily life concerns. In these experiences, you have come to know your strengths and limitations. You may have learned to respect your limits. If these limits were not considered, your body and your moral would suffer the repercussions. On this life's meandering path, you have surely learned some rewarding lessons. Let's listen to how the couple builds on the achievements of the past to meet the challenges of the present moment.
Earlier, while listening to music, I reflected on our life journey.
Oh, and then?
I'd say positive. There have been ups and downs, but in the end, it's positive.
We experienced many learning opportunities, but it wasn't easy. If we think about the beginning of our relationship, the family, the work, the illness that came on top of all that.
Yes, we often had to adapt, but the patience, the courage and the hope of being able to negotiate with all of this have always been there.
Yes, and in spite of everything to get by. With all that, I think we've learned not to repeat the same mistakes.
Many care partners reflected on their needs. They mentioned that over time, it becomes essential to question the resources and the respite care available so that everyone can find energy and regain their strength to be able to continue and help each other. In addition, they emphasize how much their ability to seek and accept help from professionals and those around them makes it possible to lighten their daily lives and thus prevent exhaustion and isolation. In this section, you are invited to consider the formal assistance that can be offered to you by health professionals and the teams around them. First, I would strongly encourage you to recognize the signs of changes, to name your daily needs, and to draw up a portrait of your situation, to be clear in your requests, and to know how to transmit them. It is also important to continue to record details of your motor fluctuations, on-off periods over 24 hours in a logbook, like the 𝗱cie𝗄𝗃 diary offered without cost by Parkinson Quebec to optimize medical treatments. In addition, it could be interesting for each of you to have your own diary to record events related to your experiences, as well as the emotions that result from them. Following a meeting with the nurse at the clinic, Mrs. Danielle and Mr. David share their thoughts.
If I understood correctly, the nurse told us not to wait until we were at the end of our rope before asking for help.
Yes. The nurse also talked about possible assistance from services offered through the regional office of Parkinson Quebec and from the healthcare professionals of the Community Local Services Center, who can refer us to various resources.
We already had help from the Community Local Services Center when I fell. They gave me a few tips. Do you remember? Maybe we should call them after listing our needs.
It's a great idea. It's true that it's more difficult for you to move around, to walk. Maybe someone there could have some ideas to improve the security in the house so that you don't fall again.
Before asking our kids for help, as they have their own life to live, first, let's find out what kind of help these organizations can offer us.
The attending physician and the pharmacist are key resources to make the best adjustments to the medication in order to better manage the symptoms as the disease progresses. Other professionals are also very valuable. We think of healthcare professionals such as nurses, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, social workers, speech therapists, psychologist, nutritionist, etc. In everyday life, needs evolve over time, both for the person living with Parkinson's and for the care partner. It is therefore favorable that assistance to meet your needs be available when it's needed. Hence the importance of asking for help before fragility sets in and independence is affected. As mentioned by Mrs. Danielle and Mr. David, the Community Local Services Center has a key role to play in adapting the home, access to health care and support services or respite care that can be offered. Following an assessment made by one of the designated health professionals, care and services may be activated. For example, specific physical care, suggestions for adapting the home, temporary care accommodation for the person with Parkinson's in the event of the care partner's illness or a need for respite. The Community Local Services Center can also facilitate contact with public social economy or private resources concerning home help, among other things, for cleaning, prepared meals, accompaniment of a bath attendant, or the choice of a better adapted home. The right resource at the right time is desirable in accordance with an appropriate schedule for the person living with Parkinson's disease. We also know that it involves other issues, such as accepting one or more people to provide care in your home and to feel respected in the process. Good communication and a clear expression of needs will facilitate mutual respects. It is beneficial to give yourself time to get used to it and do not close the door too quickly to these useful external resources. What's more, Mrs. Danielle and Mr. David strongly recommend the organization Parkinson Quebec and those services offered by the original organization, as well as the information and support line for the person living with the disease and their care partner. On the website, you will find a number of information on various topics related to Parkinson's disease, in the form of questions and answers, as well as access to sources of expert advices and some video clips with human and inspiring testimonials. Likewise, you will find several video clips that address relevant subjects including communication, improving walking, posture, and dysphagia, which means difficulty swallowing, etc. People who are going through a similar experience point out how important to know how to identify the signs of frailty at the physical level, such as involuntary weight loss, exhaustion, as well as certain monitoring points prevalent with the disease, among others, sleep, nutrition, and the integrity of the skin. I invite you to take a look at the fact sheet about frailty. This way, you will be able to better identify the signs of frailty and intervene if necessary. We have just considered possible formal assistance regarding services, care, and respite if your needs are more difficult to meet when frailty sets in. In this concern, to create room to ask for and accept help, it can also come from those around you, especially your family, your friends, and perhaps the neighborhood. I suggest a few elements for discussion and reflection concerning the possible support from those around you. How about getting help from those around you? Have you ever asked for it? Have you ever been offered assistance? Have you accepted it? What kind of people would you prefer over others? Who can help you closely or even from a distance? What is their understanding of the issues related to the disease for both of you? If help is offered to you, what will you do?
The other day, when I came to visit your house in the late afternoon, I had a better understanding of what it means for Daddy and for you when the effects of the medicine wear off.
When your dad is in an off period, it's not easy for him, nor for me. He becomes anxious and seeks to be reassured. It happens every day.
Listen, Mum. If you need some help with errands or anything else, for instance, bringing you some prepared meals, would that help?
It's very kind of you, and I do appreciate your offer. If need be, yes, I will ask you to run some errands like doing the groceries.
I'd be happy to help you and make your life a little easier. If you need me, let's talk about it, okay?
From this mother-daughter conversation, we can deduce that a clear request for help prompts a clear offer of help. Help can also be sought from other people to preserve everyone's energy and offer a variety of support. The richness of your life experiences has given you the strength to deal with responsibilities and overcome challenges together. Despite the evolution of the disease, your partner can offer a physical presence to accompany you in your daily life. As we already mentioned, the needs are there and they will increase more and more for both of you. The challenge of preserving one's autonomy deserves some attention. Maybe in-home services are already in place. If necessary, one-time temporary support can become more frequent. Is your home environment adapted to preserve your autonomy and safety? There may be other adjustments to make to enhance your comfort. In this sense, the advice of an occupational therapist via the Community Local Services Center or in private practice could be useful to you concerning the adaptive equipment as well as the potential subsidies. If home exterior maintenance is necessary, residential repair maintenance services could free you from doing jobs like mowing the lawn, clearing gutters, snow removal, and so on. And if you've already made these adaptations, are there any others to consider? Perhaps you have also thought about a living environment that could be better adapted to your reality. The following clues may be at the origin of this reflection. If your needs have not been met and/or have become too complex to manage. If frailty and reduced autonomy set in. If help at home is insufficient or is not always available. If your health and energy balance are at risk for either one of you. If any of these clues are present, mixed emotions can arise, and that's normal. Ambivalence creates discomfort and makes day-to-day management more complex. The social worker at the Community Local Services Center or in private practice can help you identify other possibilities for home assistance. He could also guide you in a process of finding a place that takes into account your evolving needs, the autonomy of each person, your finances, and your physical, psychological, and social needs. Housing consultants, whose services are generally free, can also help you find a suitable living environment.
Thank you for being available to speak to us. My husband and I have made certain observations, and we have questions to ask you.
It is my pleasure to assist you. If I understand correctly, you have concerns.
Unfortunately, despite all the goodwill in the world, I am less and less independent, and I am increasingly becoming more of a burden for my wife.
That is true. It's more demanding and taxing. We've made adaptations to our home. We have help with the housework, but some of the needs have become more difficult to manage, even with assistance. We discussed the possibility of moving to a more adapted place.
You still seem to love your home, but are you considering moving to another environment that might better suit your growing needs? It is indeed better to think about it while you are not in a rush to do so.
That's it. Could you help us in our reflection?
All right, I'll try to help you. First of all, I think you have to take the time to think about your needs, to name them and write them down. Then, according to your financial capacity, what services are you looking for? In what environment? In your neighborhood? Close to your children?
Also, what type of residence to choose?
Yes. For example, some locations accommodate your changing needs under one roof. Your preferences and all of your ideas matter. We can list the things that are important to you. Is this list satisfactory to you both? Is there anything else you would like to add?
We're open to considering different options. We even thought about wanting to be near the elevator and on lower floors.
This is a starting point for considering the various options available to you. I invite you to return to this list with a clear head to complete it over the next few days and to talk about it with your children, the social worker, or with another person who can accompany you in this important step. In this discussion, Mrs. Anne and Mr. Alexander have dared to express their preference, which is intimately related to their quality of life, in order to make a judicious and favorable choice for them. I also encourage you to discuss together and with the caring people around you the elements that should be taken into account for you both. I invite you to consult the fact sheet entitled Resources Guide. This guide contains a gold mine of information for you and your care partner. Prevention is better than suffering. An evocative title you should stop being afraid of. In this section, we suggest that you plan and organize the time of your day-to-day activities to favor those that are important to you, prioritizing them in order to give you the chance to achieve them. Also, there are elements in the future which are to be considered. We have prioritized a few from the experiences of many couples. I share the main elements with you. Let's start with scheduling appointments and planning date nights just to go out, the two of you. You have surely experienced that it's more necessary to plan them and agree on a departure and return time. Why not split the activity over time? This would allow you to preserve your energy because there is no point in running. You have to leave and come back in time. Furthermore, would you be prepared in the event of a visit to the emergency room for the one who has Parkinson's disease? It would prove beneficial to dwell on it to ensure that certain documents are ready beforehand. For example, make sure you have with you the history of the years of diagnosis of Parkinson's disease and other diseases or surgeries. In addition, have on hand the up-to-date list of medication, the phone numbers of people to contact in case of emergencies, and of your pharmacy. As well, have the precise schedule for taking medication, and as a warning, have on the list certain medications that are contraindicated. Keep in mind other relevant documentation that may be required if hospitalization ensues. Also, what would happen if the spousal care partner gets sick or is no longer able to provide care, or is in an emergency situation? Is there a formal or informal support person notified and available for this? It would be a good idea to think about appointing a person to take care of the spouse with Parkinson's, and even think about the possibility of temporarily living with an adult child or a friend, or temporary living arrangements in a care home environment, complete with care services. Or to hire a professional, or to ask someone from the extended family to come to the house for a certain period of time, as not to displace perhaps children from their school and community. I invite you to consult the fact sheet about Prevention is Better, on how to prepare at home for an emergency for either of you. Another element to consider, and not the least, is the financial impact. Some financial assistance is available if you are a person with Parkinson's disease under 65 or over 65, and that is also depending on your level of autonomy. Other resources exist if your spouse must be temporarily absent from work to help you. Certain tax measures, including tax credits, are also available. It is best to consult an accountant who knows the measures specific to your situation. For you, as a person living with advanced Parkinson, there is at the provincial level a form to provide written certification that you are a dependent senior eligible for the tax credit for home support services for seniors. At the federal level, a disability tax credit certificate can be filled out with the help of a physician or specific health professionals. For your family care partner, there is also a possibility of tax exemptions. On this subject, I invite you to consult the fact sheet about tax measures. With the frailty that sets in, it is favorable to discuss and plan together while you have all your intellectual capacities. Talking about it does not make the situation worse. This reflection could make it possible to extend your autonomy at home, to lighten the role of the care partner, and to ensure that everyone's wishes and limits are respected. For this purpose, I invite you to consider some elements that deserve your attention. For instance, a notary or witnesses who are not members of your family or your beneficiaries may be relevant in the following steps. If you have already drawn up your will, does it need to be changed given the current situation? If the will is not written down, I strongly encourage you to do so with the advice of a legal professional. If the person living with Parkinson's has more difficulty moving, concentrating, or communicating, a designated power of attorney turns out to be essential. Among other things, it allows the care partner to pay bills, do business with government services, and so on and so forth, for the benefit of the person being helped. This legal document can also be signed by a commissioner for oaths from a financial institution. If the incapacity sets in for the person living with Parkinson's or the care partner, the protection mandate becomes necessary. Beforehand, you must have chosen one or more authorized representatives who will make decisions for you and according to your wishes previously discussed. These decisions could concern, for example, your well-being, your health, and your property when you can no longer do it yourself. The notary can help you with this approach as well as with the homologation of a protection mandate process if necessary. As for advance medical directives, also known as living will, allow you to know in advance the medical care you want or those you refuse in a situation where you would be unable to consent to your care. It should be noted that it is always possible to modify them over time. You can register them with the Quebec Health Insurance Register Office or at the notaries. These directives will guide and facilitate the assigning duty of your relatives to ensure that your choices are respected and at the appropriate time. These choices related to cardiopulmonary, resuscitation, mechanical ventilation, dialysis, tube feeding, or hydration by means of intravenous infusion. In collaboration with the physician following you or during hospitalization, the notion of level of care will be discussed. This is a key moment for reflection and discussion between you and your relatives, as well as with the physicians and the nursing team. It aims to establish your intentions for realistic and relevant clinical care while being consistent with your life goals, your values, and your wishes. During your reflection, you are invited to ask yourself the following questions. What are your most important values in life, taking into account the disease or other illnesses that affect you? What about your autonomy and your well-being? What are you willing to put up with to live longer? Are you prepared to live with the consequences that may arise in dealing with complications that might occur with treatments? You will have to ask yourself these questions again and again in the future. Revisiting your choices is normal because all health conditions change over time. Talking about it, asking questions, and reflecting on your values and what is valuable to you are essential ingredients for exercising your power to act and making informed choices.
Talking about it doesn't make the situation any worse. It allows our close relatives to represent us if we are not able to speak.
In this way, those around us can communicate what is important to us in our lives, as well as our wishes to the physicians and nursing teams who treat us.
To make these choices and to be comfortable with our decisions, we can ask them questions about our health condition and about the care that is indicated for our specific situation.
My spouse has been hospitalized twice in the last year for major events. Each time, the doctors questioned us about the level of care and his choices. It's a way of showing us that the well wishes of a person are taken seriously and that their choices may change over time.
I invite you to consult the fact sheet entitled Levels of Care and Legal Aspects. It addresses the relevant legal information discussed previously and also levels of care from an independent organization that report to Quebec's Minister of Health and Social Services, named the Institut national d'excellence en santé et en services sociaux. With the announcement of the diagnosis, or shortly thereafter, you may have dared to think about the future. At first, planning for what's to come can be depressing. Subsequently, planning for the future could also be a way of keeping or gaining some control over your life. Probably, you have also developed a day-to-day philosophy. You have maintained some hope and found some meaning in this life experience. It must also have been difficult to maintain the right balance between wanting to plan and letting go. In all of this, aiming for an optimal quality of life and a certain well-being has certainly been a concern all the way. The goal of aiming for an optimal quality of life is intimately related to the palliative approach by better controlling symptoms and pain in all physical, psychological, social, spiritual, cultural, and ethical dimensions. This so-called palliative approach can be adapted or should be adapted to any chronic disease like Parkinson's, and not only to the terminal phase of a disease. Parkinson's disease progresses over the years. You have probably observed during the course of the illness some time tracers showing progression of the disease and where you had to make certain decisions. These markers in time may have made you wonder where you are on the disease trajectory that is between the time of diagnosis and now. In these moments, you have probably tried to assess the consequences of the changes as well as wondered about the heavy burden for everyone around you. Then, you may have thought about getting help and who to ask for it to accompany you. Your ability to meet your needs with the services offered as well as the quality of the services you are getting have a decisive role to play in the trajectory and in your decisions to be made for the well-being of everyone. We have seen that these concerns and decisions to make also concern some legal aspects, including power of attorney, protection mandate, updating your will and future care, including advanced medical directives and level of care. All human beings at the advanced stage of the disease, such as Parkinson's, or in end-of-life care, have the right to respect for their autonomy, their wishes, their needs, and their safety. It is essential to have free, open, and informed communication with the healthcare team and those around you. For example, taking the time to get some information, to make choices on delicate subjects such as advanced medical directives, palliative home care, or elsewhere in order to prevent and alleviate suffering, and all this requires discussions with full respect and honesty. The same goes for any end-of-life care, including medical assistance in dying, if this option was considered. I invite you to reflect on how to communicate your wishes with the appropriate people, the healthcare team, and with those around you. To provide food for thought on this subject, I invite you to consult the fact sheet about palliative and end-of-life care. As you may have noticed, life leaves clues when things are not going so well and when frailty sets in, particularly at the level of physical and psychological health, as well as at the cognitive level. The care partner may also feel not altogether in keeping with one's role of support person, which is taking up more and more room in the face of all the numerous warnings. These moments bring a quality of communication, fluidity in the exchanges, openness, a concern for oneself and for the other person, and then providing a comfort level to discuss sensitive issues, which is part of life. You are then invited to take some time out. Some couples have already mentioned that discussing needs, wishes, and planning about what is to come can bring satisfaction and a certain relief in being able to have their preferences and values respected in view of future care on the path that is emerging. How can we accompany each other through the stages of this grieving process marked by emotions that emerge and intersect with its ups and downs? Each of you, in your own way, has surely gone through these stages during the diagnostic phase of Parkinson's or during significant changes in your health condition. When signs of frailty set in, Supporting someone dear to you is part of the trajectory, including the end of life. This requires more of your presence in here and now. In this Parkinson's tinged trajectory, you can expect everything and assume nothing. Every day, life offers us challenges and surprises with those we love. Do not hesitate to discuss the elements that are important to you with your relatives and with your healthcare team in order to receive their support. They are there for you to ensure your comfort and your quality of life.